Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Italian Grand Prix preview. It's just two of us again. This time it's no Adam. He's busy doing something in Oklahoma. Don't know what he's doing.
He's going to university.
He is, apparently.
Which is
Yeah.
fair enough.
Just like us.
Oh yeah, we
In
work
works.
and then he goes to school, and then so we can't really do anything together.
We're not his parents. That is the voice of Freddie Coates. Now, the last time it was just me and Freddie, I think I made a reference to Freddie's long hair. 12 months on, Freddie still has long hair. So, how are you doing, Freddie?
I'm thinking of getting a haircut. Um, no, I'm doing good. I am surprisingly not as tired out as I thought I would be from probably one of the busiest weeks in F1 for news, just happening to be the last week of a triple header. And you just think, oh, for goodness sake, F1, of course you were going to just make everyone work so hard now. And it has done. The F1 gods have pointed and laughed. But I don't know, even though the news has been essentially ticking boxes rather than creating shocks, there's still been an element of excitement that has kept me going. It's like, oh, it actually is happening. That's fun with a lot of it.
Yeah, I've been exactly the same. And the first big, well, I guess it's the biggest announcement was that George Russell has finally been confirmed as a Mercedes driver, Lewis Hamilton's teammate next year. The worst kept secret, most people have been calling it. I mean, we've talked about it quite a bit already in the last 3 months because we've
Yeah.
known or not known, we've thought it was going to happen. What else is there more to add that you've thought of in the last few days since it's been announced, Freddie?
Well, I think it gives you an extra element of being excited, because there's always that niggling feeling in the back of your head of might not happen when you're saying, oh, Hamilton versus Russell, oh, a fight from two brilliant drivers in one of the best cars on the grid. But you're sort of thinking, but it might not happen. It still might not happen. But now you can sort of, it's a definite. We can properly get excited by this now because it's a certainty. And that's what sort of makes it something else for me. It gives you an excuse to just go, wow, oh my goodness, 2022, wow. So that's basically been my reaction.
Yeah.
Similar for you?
Yeah. Well, not quite like that. a bit more toned down. I think it's the first all British pairing for 10 years, 9 years since Hamilton and Button at McLaren. But I think what's great is that it's unpredictable. So we know what Bottas and Hamilton, we know what's going to happen. We know Hamilton's going to get the better of Bottas 9 times out of 10. With this, I don't know which way it's going to go. I don't know if Hamilton's going to thrash Russell and make him look bad or not as good as we all think, or I don't know if Russell's going to beat Hamilton. It could go either way for me. And with the new regulations as well, I think that levels the playing field a bit as well. So it's just that unpredictability of having a different driver at one of the top teams if Mercedes get it right, because they've only had three different drivers in the last, since 2013, so the last 8 years. So I think it's just that element. And as well, having young drivers at different teams. We've now got Russell at Mercedes, Verstappen at Red Bull, Ocon at Alpine, Norris at McLaren, Leclerc and Sainz at Ferrari. The list goes on. So it's just so exciting. And if there's multiple teams at the top next year, it could be even better than this season. And this season's already brilliant. It's already a classic. So it's just all of that.
This is what I was saying in about November last year. And it was like, but obviously with different people, I was kind of going, every team setting themselves up to have a good team leader. And it was more like, you got the Alonso, you've got Hamilton, Verstappen. But now other drivers have sort of put themselves in the mix as well, with sort of Norris and Sainz and Leclerc being level. And now Russell, we think, could be level with Hamilton, that kind of thing. So that's sort of just the sheer level of talent that could be in a fight for, well, podiums consistently next year is going to just be brilliant. And it's going to come down to the driver. And so many teams, I don't know which team has got the best lineup now. I mean, Hamilton and Russell, Sainz and Leclerc,
Yeah.
Norris and a good Ricciardo, Verstappen and maybe if a capable car for Perez. I mean, that kind of stuff. It's Alonso Ocon this year has been massive lineup. I mean, one of the surprises of the season, how good that partnership has been. So, wow, just F1, hats off.
This is it always feels like a bit of a golden period, I think, after 2 or 3 years where the field, there was a lot of talk
14,
about
15,
drivers,
16. Yeah.
And stuff like that. But now the quality, it's as good as ever. It really is.
Definitely. We don't have the sort of stragglers, if you will, sort of the I don't want to name people, but
you don't have to, but
we know you know who I mean.
Yeah. I mean, I think we've pretty much covered that. I mean, I think we can talk about Bottas not Bottas. We will be talking about Russell and how he'll get on when Adam's back and next year and stuff. Because it's still 7 or 8 months still that.
I don't think the topic's going to go away from pretty much any podcast we do.
Yeah, we can probably save it for another day. Let's talk about Bottas now. Confirmed to Alfa Romeo on what I think is a 3-year deal.
Yes, that's what I've heard.
So, is it a good move for Bottas? Good move for Alfa?
Both. Good move for both. It's a real good chance for them to sort of have. I mean, they've had Kimi Raikkonen, but it's always been a swan song. It's never been a push. It's just been what's the word? It's been a sort of an accommodation for Kimi Raikkonen, and Alpha Sauber have accepted that, and that's fine because they've got a world champion, and there weren't any really other sort of lead drivers on the market. They could have gone for a Perez or a Hulkenberg, but it's not the same really. But they've gone and courted Bottas well, and he's earned this drive at Alfa Romeo. Really, he's earned that drive by being so close to Hamilton. I think this year his average qualifying gap to Hamilton is 0.1 tenths, and so if his average qualifying is fantastic. So we've seen sort of the potential of Alfa with Giovinazzi in Zandvoort. Basically, if we take that as sort of a message, a control for sort of where that car can get to, then if Bottas is doing that regularly, they can become a regular point scoring team with Valtteri Bottas there, and he can drive that team. Definitely, I think
100%. Yeah, and no matter who his teammate is, I think he will most likely beat them most of the time. I think, and I think you're absolutely right. His qualifying is very good, and that will be his strong point. And if you're in the midfield, if you can qualify hard, then you can just kind of defend for the race, even if you're a bit slower. So I think he can shine. It's the perfect reset. It'll be a new chapter. He'll be probably near his peak, I'd say, in terms of his racing career as well. So I think it's a great move for Alfa and Bottas. So, yeah.
There are some drives that Valtteri, like we say, qualifying driver, definitely. But he can drive in races brilliantly. Some of his Williams drives, where you sort of, had to sort of plug away in a subpar car comparatively to the top teams, to the Ferraris, the Red Bulls, the Mercs of the time, were brilliant. Canada 2016, I think, is an underrated drive for Valtteri Bottas when he got on the podium that year.
I just remember the seagull in that one.
Yeah, exactly. That's fair enough. That's the best bit. But he got ahead of Rosberg. He got ahead of a fast charging Verstappen. He got ahead of Raikkonen and all of that in a Williams that year, which it was good Williams, but it was a hangover Williams. And he did a brilliant job. And some of his drives for Williams, really, I think, if they can come out in Alfa Romeo, which I think they will do, because if he's a lead, comfortable driver, which he can shine. He's an emotional guy, Valtteri. We forget that. We sort of talk about the sort of placid fin and the hard exterior. And yeah, you get that. It's straight talking, but he's such an emotional driver. And if he's in a good place at Alfa, which I think he will be, because he is the first driver announced to that seat, he's the driver, Alfa Romeo, really, as you've said. And that will work wonders.
Yeah. And we've talked a bit before about the mental toll that he must have had by being Hamilton's teammate, getting beat weekend out, weekend in for 4 years. And now he's finally released from that, I guess, or he will be at the end of the year. And Russell with his qualifying performance at Spa when he got on the front row. Bottas in 2013 Canada, people won't remember this. He got third
Yes.
in the wet.
Yeah.
And I think Williams was eighth or ninth fastest car that year, something like
They
that.
scored points 3 times that year.
Yeah. So in his rookie season, 2013, to get on the second row of the grid in Canada, tough circuit, mixed conditions, just like Russell. So he can definitely do it, and yeah, I think he will go well. I think that's been a general agreement amongst most people. I think actually. So
yeah, definitely. And I'd like to say that I think Mercedes handled the announcement of Valtteri and George actually this week very well. Obviously, It's been an open secret for so long, and it's meant that Valtteri's had to sit there for months answering questions about George Russell, which is not great at all. But the way the narrative of the week has been, Valtteri earned a drive, not Valtteri lost a seat. And I think that's to be fair, that's classy. Well done.
Absolutely, yeah, because they could have announced Russell at the British Grand Prix or something, and then Bottas for 2 or 3 months could have been left unknown. But 100% agree with that. The other big driver announcement came on Wednesday, which is today when we're recording this, was Alexander Albon is back. Yes. Oh, I don't know what to make of this. Having been dropped last year in favour of Sergio Perez, he is now back with Williams. Probably something none of us saw coming before this year. He will be with Nicholas Latifi. He's retained his seat as well. I think it's a good move. Well, obviously it's a good move for Albon because he's back, but I think it's the right move because I think he does deserve a chance, just like we've seen with Gasly. And I think he can deliver. I think he'll be. He's had a year out, so he can reset, and I think he'll come back strong. I don't know how strong, but I think he'll be all right.
I think what's really worked in Albon's favour is that he never did any worse than Gasly did at Red Bull, really. He had more time to do better, which he did at points, but he didn't do woefully. And the way Gasly's now picked himself back up and got so brilliant, Red Bull look at that and think, well, this driver's got talent, Perez has got talent, Gasly's got talent, they've all got talent. It's just there's so much more knowledge of the situation they've put these 3 drivers in that they have really backed Alex, and that's worked wonders for him, I think, because I think that's some of the reasons that have sort of won him back favor in the F1 fan community, for starters, like me and you saying we think he deserves another go, and also in the paddock, and in Red Bull, I think have been very classy in supporting Alex rather than chucking him in the bin, which they used to do a lot of the time. They've been very good at the way they've handled this driver, basically. And I think he's going to fit in well at Williams. I think I know it's a different ownership to what it used to be with Doralton Capital and not the Williams family, but I think he's a driver Frank Williams would have really wanted and Patrick Head would have really wanted in the team, because he's forced to get to this level of motorsport. He's been dropped from program after program and had adversity against him, bad season, picked himself back up, got new sponsors, did a brilliant season in, I want to say, European F3, something like that, and then got to GP3 on his own steam, got to F2 with basically no sponsors and stayed there based on talent on a race by race sponsor basis before getting picked up by Toro Rosso and then having a rough time at Red Bull and still coming out from that and getting a seat. I think that's a very old school Williams mantra. And I think, back in the 90s, the way Williams managed their drivers was a bit awful. But I think the way that team has developed is the perfect place for Alex Albon to not to reset, really, just to build on what he's done already.
Yeah. Do you think Perez's underperformance, I guess, in recent months, do you think that's kind of helped Albon and Gasly? Do you think we'll look at them differently because Perez hasn't been able to be that much better than what they did?
Yes, definitely, because Perez hasn't, and Perez has been in Formula One for 10 seasons before that. When Gasly was announced at Red Bull, the year before he didn't have a F1 drive. Same with Albon, he'd only done 12 races or so. So not even that. 10 races.
Yeah.
And so those two are thrown into such sticky situations so early on in their career, and did at times perform in really tricky scenarios as really young drivers. So I think from that perspective, yes, I would agree.
Definitely for me, because before this year, I did think Albon was not great. I think that's quite clear. But I think Perez's form or lack of form has changed my mind a bit, even though they are different years, different cars and stuff. So yeah, definitely for me. It'll be. I think next year we'll find out because Perez he'll be around for another year, and Albon will be on the grid. So then we'll get a good indication of, who like whether Albon is a driver who's capable of winning races or whether he's not capable of that and stuff like that. Latifi, he's staying. Is that the right move?
I was speaking to someone about this earlier today, and we basically kind of agreed. He's sort of come out of his shell recently. That Hungary performance, I think, has really done him wonders, because that was a brilliant race drive, to be honest. And his qualifying, he was only a 10th off Russell, and he said he did a bad lap. So I think, and practice pace in Zandvoort, he was ahead of Russell for the most part. We didn't get to see their full qualifying laps, but they were good, close on pace again. So I think his pace gap to Russell this year is shrunk. And I think really, if he takes a similar step for a third year in F1, I don't see why it shouldn't take another leap forward. So I think, yeah, I genuinely do think Latifi is a solid driver at Williams. And I think it's working for him well. I mean, yeah, obviously it would be cool to see a young charger go up against him, and you can say, well, definitely have pace. But to have a team, to have a driver who's been embedded in that team for a long time, really, and who's familiar with the systems, familiar with everything that is being done there, and apparently is quite technically minded and really, really great to work with. That's precisely what Williams are wanting at the moment. That's the exact characterization they want a driver to have, and is what Latifi brings. So he checks more boxes than a lot of other drivers do, I'd say.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good summary. And I think, it's only his second season in F1 as well, and he's been up against Russell. And if Russell does match or beat Hamilton next year, then that will make Latifi look a lot better, because on race pace, Latifi is not too far away. It's just qualifying where sometimes he's knocked out in Q1 and Russell gets to Q3 or whatever. So we
can't have a cake and eat it with Russell. That's the thing. We can sit here and say, wow, Russell's such a brilliant qualifier. His pace is unbelievable. And then we can't say, wow, Latifi's awful in qualifying, because that's then best of both worlds. Because Latifi probably is a good qualifier. It's just Russell is a great qualifier. That's how it is, really. That's how I'm really seeing it now.
Yeah, I think so too. I think so. And I think the one thing with Latifi, my one problem is that I don't see him moving to another team. I don't think he's got quite the quality for another team to see him and go, well, okay. I think he can only stay at Williams. And that's not a bad thing, because if Williams do move up the grid, then he's there. And he does deserve a place on the grid. It's just unfortunate. And there's so many other drivers who also deserve a place on the grid. And I think, that's the only problem I have, I think.
I mean, never say never, because look at his teammate, Alex Albon. So I think if Latifi can do well, can have some good showings, he can turn a few heads, because really you're only as good as your last race. So
yeah,
I mean, that's an awful saying and I hate it, but
so
like if you look at his 2020 compared to 2021, such different seasons, genuine improvement. So there is time for him to improve as a Formula One driver and to extend a career in Formula One. Really, he's not a two season wonder, is he? I mean, I think a lot of us thought he would be. He's building a career out of this.
Yeah, definitely. The only other announcement is that AlphaTauri are going to keep the lineup for next year. Pierre Gasly and Yuki Tsunoda. Now, I think this one, Tsunoda especially, is the one where we think, is that right? Is that wrong? It's come kind of early in September, considering Tsunoda last year was announced in December. You've obviously got Yuri Vips, Liam Lawson in Formula Two. They maybe could have had a chance, but I think for me it is the right choice. Just as long as Tsunoda does show some improvement, but I think he does deserve a second season just because of how good he was before he came into F1, and maybe he just needs that time to develop. Learn every track after 1 year and then go again. So I'd say it is the right move, but I am a bit skeptical, I think.
What's that phrase? Sort of, if you keep doing the same thing over and over again and expecting something different to happen, it's the definition of stupidity, or something like that. I think I've paraphrased that appallingly. But if you take a driver who's done really well in junior series, put him in F1 and he does badly, and go, oh no, this guy's doing so much better than him in junior series. A guy who's done a similar career, doing well in junior series. Take Liam Lawson, for example, doing well in DTM and F2. And you put him in the seat, chances are he'll just have a similar situation to Tsunoda. So you may as well stick with Tsunoda. And I think that's fair enough. I think a lot of people have raised eyebrows at it, but I think it speaks a lot of this new Red Bull driver approach that I spoke about with Albon, how they've rejuvenated this driver and they're giving Tsunoda more time to build. And they've done it with Gasly, they've done it with Albon, they're doing it with Tsunoda. They're giving him time to build. I think what it says about it is they have the trust to put a young driver in Formula One rather than letting drivers sort of sit in the sidelines and say, "Yeah, they're definitely ready now for Formula One." It's like, well, if he's not ready for Formula One, we'll put him there and he'll become ready for Formula One. And that's what they're doing with Tsunoda. And it gives them time then to build up Tsunoda and also to have Lawson building up in the background. And Vips, I think, I don't know, isn't the favourite child. I think Lawson is the favourite child based on his DTM role. But yeah, I think may as well keep Tsunoda. And you got such a safe pair of hands in Gasly. There's no harm in having a driver who could be good, very good, next door to him.
Do you think Honda would be the factor, perhaps? Because obviously Red Bull's and AlphaTauri's engines, they'll still be built and constructed in Sakura in Japan, but then they'll be housed in Milton Keynes. Do you think that's a factor, perhaps?
I don't know. They were so insistent that it was never a factor in the first place in putting him in the car, which, you can take with a pinch of salt, but Red Bull aren't going to run a driver if they're not going to be interested in a driver, are they? Same with Williams aren't going to run Alex Albon just for a favour. So, which who knows? Maybe looking at all the rumours of VW and all of that coming back, who knows? And Jos Capito being former VW and Jos Capito working with Red Bull back in the day when he was at Sauber. But anyway, that's a whole other kettle of fish that no one needs to really care about. But I think it could do. It's nice to have that link. They won't want to lose that link with Japan that they've had so much that will have earned them good sponsorship deals and stuff. I think maybe they've got a few better relationships with people because of that class from Japan. Who knows? But
maybe the better question is it a different mentality from Red Bull or different approach from Red Bull to not dump out a driver as they have done in the past?
It's definitely that. That's what I was trying to say earlier with Gasly staying, Albon staying, and now keeping Tsunoda. They're normally pretty good at not getting rid of a driver after one season anyway. I think the only driver that's happened really with in Red Bull is Brendan Hartley. I think everyone else has had more time. I mean, Hartley had 4 races at the end of 2017, so it didn't really happen to Hartley either. So, maybe it's only Robert Dornbos who hasn't really got much out of his Red Bull career. So, that exactly, that's such a niche reference. I think they do give drivers more than one season.
Yeah, I think Red Bull get too much criticism. I really do. I think it's,
but you're so old school. You're like Ken Tyrrell. You want to just put drivers in cars and then say, "Why aren't you going fast, you idiot?"
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
I think from the more mental health and sports psychology side of it, Red Bull have genuinely improved their act in the past couple of years.
Yeah, and this is the right approach. I think before, a few years ago, it was a bit too pushy. I'm not sure what the word is. A bit too cutthroat. Yeah, cutthroat. Whereas now it is more balanced. I think they got the right balance now. You just touched on something before. I forgot to ask when we were talking about Albon. The Mercedes block / Red Bull link to Albon. What do you make of all of that?
I get it. I do get it. You can't have a driver contracted to your championship rivals driving for a car that you're going to have a massive technical partnership with, which they are going to have in 2022. It was announced in January this year, so it might have gone under a few people's radar. But from 2022, Williams and Mercedes are going to have a similar relationship to that of Mercedes and Aston Martin, which gave Racing Point so much success. So, I mean, they won a race. So, if that kind of relationship going down into Williams is fantastic for Williams and fantastic as their sort of, long-term allyship with Mercedes. So, obviously, they don't want a driver who's going to be feeding back a lot to Red Bull. It's like a reserve driver for Red Bull, saying, "Oh, well, we've got this new part and it's going to do this." Apparently, you don't want that. You don't want that going out, do you? So, I think it's fair enough. It is a shame if it could have.
Go on.
I think it would be a shame to block drivers from a seat because of sort of meddling from higher powers. But at the end of the day, this is Formula One, and that's what it is. It's a political game. So that's what's happened. That's why Red Bull have cut ties with Alex Albon. But I think there's something. I think they said there's an option in the future. I think there's a letter of intent, but I think that's it. Like Senna had with Ferrari, that kind of thing.
Do you think it's a problem that Mercedes and Red Bull, they're not controlling the grid? Well, I guess they have too much power.
The teams at the front have always had so much power, aren't they? We always talk about the dominoes to fall at the front of the grid. That's just because that's where the money is. As the big money moves, it's always going to be where the power is. If this budget cap could completely change that, but it would take 5 or 6 years for sort of salaries to sort of settle and drivers to sort of mingle around. But because we've got such a structure in performance at the moment, there's always going to be a structure then in driver salary and a structure in where the big names are.
Yeah, and I would rather have this than what we had 5, 6 years ago when we had pay drivers, as we talked about before, where you'd have 2 pay drivers. I'd rather have junior drivers or Red Bull affiliated or Mercedes affiliated drivers at different teams because they're good drivers, whereas paid drivers might not be. So yeah, I think this is better. So yeah, I think.
Anything to avoid going back to Pastor Maldonado and Bruno Senna, really, for Williams.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've said it now. I think we've covered all of the driver news, Freddie, unless I've missed. Oh no, Kubica this weekend. I guess that's driver news.
Yeah.
Raikkonen is not driving this weekend. Robert Kubica gets another chance after what he said was his best weekend in F1 for 11 years or something like that, since before after he had his horrible accident 10 years ago. I mean, it's nice he gets another chance. I mean, yeah, it's great for him.
Yeah, there's 2 sides to this. I think it's really sad that Kimi's missing races after he's announced his retirement and everything. He announces his retirement and then straight away misses the race afterwards, and now is missing his final Monza as the last Ferrari world champion to miss Monza. That's that stings a bit. There's something in the poetry of that that's quite sad. But there's so much joy in that story about Kubica having such a good time back in F1, and yeah, because the word he used to describe Williams in 2019 was survival, and to see that not be the case anymore, to see him enjoying it, to see him relish it, and to see him have a good race in which we spoke about in our race review for the Dutch Grand Prix. He had a good race there, 18th to 15th, and overtook Latifi on the last lap of the race, actually, in a pretty decent move. Good on him. And he's going to a track for a full weekend. He's going to that track, a track he's really good at. He got his first ever podium in his 3rd race at Monza. as in his third race in Formula One, not his third race at Monza. His third race at Formula One at Monza was his first ever podium, and that's brilliant. It was amazing, and he goes like the clappers around that track. So I think he could have a really good weekend, if I'm honest. And I'm really happy to see him there. I think it would be cool to see him race there, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. And Giovinazzi, he'll be on home turf as well. So if Kubica is close, I think he's, if he's within 3-4 attempts, I think that's a very, very good job. On Raikkonen, someone part of racing news, he said, it wouldn't surprise me if Raikkonen doesn't come back and this is just all part of it and he just wants to retire early or something like that. So who knows? Yeah, but if it is genuine, like hopefully he does get better and he'll be back.
Of course, it's genuine. Yeah, all the best to you, Kimmy. I mean, you probably don't watch this, but wow, Kimmy watches the podcast.
Imagine.
I think, yeah, all the best to Kimmy. I think, in all honesty, he'll be back in Russia hopefully. But yeah, it's nice to see Robert have this moment because, yeah, let's be honest. His Williams stint was a bit naff, and if he had been in Renault, maybe it would have probably been really interesting. So,
absolutely. So, after all of that, let's finally talk about the race weekend, the third of three. Yeah, third of three triple headers. Well, it's the second of three.
Second triple header, the third race of the triple header.
The second triple header. Why did I make that so complicated? It's the Italian Grand Prix.
That's the easy bit.
So it should suit Mercedes, shouldn't it? Red Bull have never had a podium here in the turbo hybrid era. So it should be Mercedes' win weekend.
Honda won there last year.
Well,
on pure pace. I don't know, because the difference is there this year, isn't it? Rebel won in France, Rebel won in the sprint race in Silverstone, and arguably with a faster car there. Rebel were the faster car in Spa, so who knows?
It was wet, wasn't it? So yeah.
They did some good practice runs. I think it's too close to call this year, and I think the top end speed of Honda is very good. The Mercedes acceleration is fantastic.
Wonder why that is.
Yes, that's a very technical thing that we haven't spoken about on this podcast. I think.
No, no.
Talk about plenums. The Honda engine has got very good, consistent acceleration and top end speed. So that suits Monza, if I'm honest. And the car is much more efficient than it has ever been, really. So I think it's much more open than we think it could be.
But if you look at all of the tracks coming up, if Mercedes on pure pace don't win this weekend, surely it's Red Bull's to lose now. Because I mean, in the last race that Hamilton won, where Verstappen and Hamilton finished was Spain in May, start of May. That is such a long time ago. So
yeah, it is.
I think it's probably not a must win, but I think in terms of pure pace, Mercedes need to put down a marker, because if they can't win here, then Red Bull have to be slight favourites at pretty much every race after this, I think.
Whoever wins at this race has the potential to scare the other team shitless, basically, for the next few races. Because if Mercedes win, then it's Red Bull like, oh no, Sochi, we can't compete.
Mercedes are expected to win more, I think.
Yeah, but I still think it's hard for Red Bull in the momentum of the next few races. And then it works the opposite way if Red Bull are on good pace. But I do think, because we can talk about cars having pace this year, but in my mind, to be honest, there aren't really characteristics. It's just Hamilton and Verstappen are going to be within a couple of tenths of each other at a maximum. So, and it's Monza. The gaps around Monza are always tiny because it's such a power track, because of the maximum throttle. I can't remember the percentage, but it's like ridiculous, isn't it? The maximum
80, I think, or something like that.
Yeah, it's 80%. Stupid. And that's just going to bring it closer together. I mean, I think you could see a McLaren mixing, or I think you could see a Lando Norris mixing. Yeah. So who knows?
I think as well, we've got the sprint, the second sprint qualifying as well. But qualifying itself, it's going to be just be about who can be in 4 or 5 seconds behind, who can get the ultimate or optimal slipstream, stuff like that. Hopefully, we won't see any of the messing around that we got a couple of years ago. And it's just going to be about it's just going to be about the conditions. You can get the perfect setup. Just these tiny things, tire pressures, cloud cover, these little things which most people won't think about, but the teams will. That is what it's going down to. And then obviously it's down to the drivers. Hamilton and Verstappen are making the difference. And one small mistake is all it takes this year. Whereas, for so many years, Hamilton could make a mistake, for example, but then he would still get pole. Whereas now it's just so close, and that is the difference. So it's really nothing. It's just who can execute the best on, from the driver's perspective and the team's perspective as well. Yeah.
I think this is the best timing. Yeah, you have done very well. I think this is the best timing for a sprint race weekend.
Yeah.
To be honest, the end of the triple header, it keeps it fresh, keeps it different, and it's so easy from us as a journalistic perspective to go into Friday this week and just think this is going to be a dreadful like it's just going to be boring this weekend. You can go in on such a down of having had worked 2 races really hard, Dutch Grand Prix for you specifically for a Dutch sort of brand, and Spa, which was just such a miserable Grand Prix, to then go into this race weekend, and we've got the qualifying on the Friday evening, and we've got the sprint on the Saturday afternoon, and then the Sunday race with the same ordinary hype that we normally have for that anyway. To have that it sort of drags you through this triple header, I think. For me, at least,
I like the Friday practice days, though. So yeah, I'm not sure why.
I like them more than most. But I think the more I've covered it, the more I've sort of gone a bit more like, come on, I'm impatient now, and that's what I like about 5 o'clock UK time in the evening qualifying, because then it's just like the excitement's there all day. They're like, oh, we're going to get to qualifying. And it's such a long day because you start with F2 practice at like 6 a.m. But it's going to be great.
Oh God, yeah. Yeah, F2 is back. I forgot about that. They've been off for about 7 years.
What's F2?
So exactly. So you think McLaren will be up there? How is anyone else going to be up there? How far can McLaren be?
I think McLaren needs to have a good weekend, considering they've dropped behind Ferrari in the constructors for the first time this season. I want to say first time this season. But Ferrari just have a knack of just suddenly being actually quite good when you don't think they will be. And Baku stands out for me as a sign for why Ferrari could well still be in the fight. Alpine, I think, and Aston Martin could also be nipping at their heels a bit more than usual. I think it's just because it's Monza, it brings the cars a little bit closer together. So even
and the engines are close now as well, aren't they?
Yeah, I think really every team is going to be in with a shot of Q3, apart from Haas. I'd say every team.
Yeah. Do you think there might be a small problem in the sprint qualifying and the race with DRS trades, kind of like what we got last year with Gasly's amazing win, but then behind it was only Hamilton who could make that impact?
I think so. We've got softer tyres than there were at Silverstone. It's the C234, the middle of the tyre range.
Band.
Yeah, that's it. So maybe that could make an interest, or it could just settle everyone to do it on mediums for the sprint. Who knows? But I think so. But I think that's been the nature of Monza for some time. But I don't think it can stop the excitement, because I think it can keep cars at the front close together. So I think really what sort of ruined the start a lot of Monza last year was Valtteri Bottas's awful start. Because if we look back to 2019 Monza, 2018 Monza, you had a Ferrari and a Mercedes sort of duking it out.
They were so good. They were
such great races, those. And I think really there's still potential for that in the sprint and in the feature race. Not feature, but you know what I mean.
Feature race.
Yeah, I know. Formula 2 is really rubbing off on me.
I wish it was a feature race, but yeah, unfortunately not.
I think the race is the feature, but we had these sprint debates already.
Yeah. I'm just trying to think, is there anything else to talk about? I'm not sure if there is.
Oh, wow.
Parabolica's not called a Parabolica. That's
Yes,
news.
it's going to be called the
Alfa
Curva
Romeo.
Alboreto,
Alfa Romeo is going to have a different livery. I think.
which looks
I saw about
lovely.
an hour ago. Yeah, it does.
It does. It's
Cool,
111 years. It's only, I think every year Alfa Romeo have been F1, there's been an excuse for them to do a special livery. I think they did a special thing in the 1000 Grand Prix because they won the first one, which is fair enough. And then they had it was a 100-year anniversary last year, so they did something special. And now they're doing 111 or whatever it was, 110 last year. Obviously, it was 111. 111. Let's go crazy. And it was just fair enough. Just you're in Italy, love it, cool, have fun. GGG. Oi.
God. Yeah, is there anything else to talk about, Freddie? Have I missed anything? I'm an awful.
I don't know. It's been such a hectic week, hasn't it? There's been so much that's gone on. I think we should probably just talk about the sleep we're going to get on Sunday evening.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I think that's it. I should end it here. I'm gonna end it. Thanks for
wow, you have so much
listening.
power. Wow.
Thanks for watching. Adam will be back next time, hopefully, unless something really bad has happened. But hopefully nothing has. That's a dark thought. Why did I think of that? We will be back with Adam, myself, and Freddie to review the Italian Grand Prix. It should be, or could be, a good one. We'll see you then.